Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And it's your boy, Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions. But first, Jeff.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Cool. I don't know what that was.
That was this.
So I apologize. I'm sorry, or you're welcome. Whichever you prefer.
Sometimes the spirit just takes us.
Yes.
The spirit of the internet.
Yeah. So yeah, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. Actually, speaking of the spirit of the internet,
that's a good start to a sentence.
Sure. All right, so we kind of went on a tangent about video games and stuff.
Yes.
Nothing too crazy, but I like playing video games, so I like talking about video games.
As do I. So I'll if you're hearing this, if you want to hear our discussion about video games, it was about 30 minutes long and about a range of topics. Just keep listening after the episode ends. And then, but if you don't want to, if you want to just get into the episode, we'll get into it, and then you can skip over that once the ending music plays.
Yeah, sometimes we just kind of get going and don't realize how much time it's taking.
Yeah. So aside from video games, aside from ranting about video games, Jeff, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Cool.
Just tired from work, but it's a good, like, fulfilled tired. You know, it's good. I'm doing my job and it's enjoyable for the most part.
Yeah. For me this week, I'm off. I'm off work this week, so I've got a nice little vacation here, and I've got a bunch of stuff I can do, so I'm not going to be. It's not like I'm going to be, sitting around doing nothing. I can keep myself busy, but it's cool to be able to relax a little bit and still get stuff done.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Spend more time editing podcasts.
I know I do plan a lot of stuff I've been planning on doing for a long time and not gotten around to it. I'll try to get that done this week.
Sure.
So I guess you want to get into the episode?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't come up with anything clever for the Dragon's Horde, so Jeff, roll a d20.
Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, 19.
Okay, you found the Dragon's Horde.
Yay!
Okay, our item for today was submitted by Thomas via Reddit. Thomas is the person that submitted Gunjar the Sentient Cloak. Mm-hmm. He also submitted the Cube of Patience and the Frog Stones. Although I guess he wasn't actually the one that invented the Cube of Patience, the Frog Stones. That was his friend. But he created the Sentient Cloak.
Nice.
So in this episode, the item he submitted was it's a sword called Optimist's Pragmatism. It's a bit of a wordy name, but this is an artifact. This is a powerful item. It's got some history behind it too, which I think is quite possibly the best part of artifacts. The Optimist's Pragmatism is the hilt and broken half-foot blade of a longsword. The blade is made of steel and appears to have some runes inscribed into it, but they're illegible due to the blade's broken nature. The handle is a simple leather-wrapped handle, well worn but still firm and sturdy. Legend tells that this once belonged to a noble warrior known as Petros the Undaunted. It was said that whenever he went into battle, whatever the odds he faced, he did it with a smile and unflinching faith that he and his companions would make it through, often attempting even to make plans for after the battle with his comrades. This unbridled hope and optimism seeped into the blade he bore, and although it is now broken, suggesting that even Petros the Undaunted's hope was at one point dashed, should another hero possessing a similar spirit of optimism wield the broken sword, its full length and power can be restored. The user, because this is an artifact, this is just whenever the user wants it to be, the user may at any time call upon the optimism in the blade to reforge its full length out of pure hope, giving it the same stats as a longsword, with a bonus equal to the user's charisma modifier. For example, if the user has a +3 to charisma checks, the weapon would function similarly to a +3 longsword, although dealing radiant damage as opposed to slashing. Now, I just want to interrupt. That is freaking powerful.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
In 5th edition D&D, +3 is as high as anything gets.
Yeah.
And technically speaking, you could have, I guess, as high as a +5.
Sure, yeah.
Because I don't recall if there are magic items in the Dungeon Master's Guide that increase your charisma. I know there's stuff that while you're wearing it, your strength is higher or whatever. I'm not sure if the same exists for charisma. Anyway, in any case, being able to have a +5 weapon in a system that only accounts for +3 weapons is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Not saying that you shouldn't ever do this, but I mean, that just shows how powerful this can be.
Yeah. I think it's slightly balanced in the fact that it's like charisma. So if you have so many points in charisma, you're probably not like the fighting type.
That's a good
so
point.
You're not going to get like the most out of that benefit, but it's kind of like it'll kind of like even the odds a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. It lets you benefit from a dump stat.
Yeah.
So if you, I guess by dump stat I mean like a common dump stat for fighters.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you happen to have a high charisma, this lets you make use of it.
Yeah.
The blade returns to its broken state when the user wishes. When the blade is not reforged, it may be used as a standard dagger, dealing piercing damage, but has disadvantage when used to make a ranged attack if you were to throw it because it is unbalanced.
Okay.
Which I think is a neat little touch.
Yeah.
As a standard action during combat, the user may attempt a charisma check, the DC being equal to the CR of the encounter. Which is a little strange. Like that's, I don't think there are any other mechanics that go off of that, but hey, it can happen. Upon a success, the user fills the entire party with optimism and hope from the sword, granting them advantage on their attack rolls for a number of rounds equal to the user's charisma modifier. This may only be used once per long rest. So pretty powerful buff, but again, you have to meet a DC. It's a charisma check, so if you don't have a high charisma, and so on. When reforged, the blade emits dim light for 30 feet. The blade will always emit this light when reforged. So you can't reforge it and also make it dim. Like if it's reforged, it's gonna be doing that.
Right. But I mean, since it can be reforged and forged and unforged or whatever at will, you're usually only gonna have it forged when you're in battle or something.
Sure.
So that shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Yeah. And then just says the actual text of the runes, because I said the sword has runes inscribed onto it, but you can't read it because it's broken. The actual text of the runes is not currently specified, so it's left to the DM's discretion should they or the players wish to further investigate the item.
Sure.
I really like that touch.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool where it's like, here's something that could be used as a plot hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe if the users look into the runes enough, maybe they're able to find out a way to permanently reforge the sword.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe if they do, then the spirit of Petros the Undaunted comes out or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Or it's some clue to find out what happened to Petros, or to find out where it was made, or
sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, so just the fact that it gives you, there's this really cool history behind it, it has a neat effect, and then it gives you a little bit more, just like a little bit that the DM can use if he wants to, if the players are interested enough.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I think this is a really cool item. We haven't really had a long listener-submitted item in a while. I think this was a really cool addition. So thank you very much, Thomas.
And it brings me hope to to future entries from other people who send us emails through our email at...
Well, so speaking of which, if somebody wanted to send us more items, how would they do so?
They'd send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Sure. Now, before we get into the episode, I just want to mention to everybody, I want two things I want to mention. Number one, I want to mention that in case, I've mentioned it in previous episodes, but we have a fellowship with our fellow podcast, Crit Academy.
Yes.
Anybody who has not listened to Crit Academy, it's a very, very good podcast. It's hosted by Justin, and I believe he just, as of a day or so ago, he just posted that two of his friends have just agreed to be permanent co-hosts.
Oh, nice. He
had one co-host with him for the first 10 or 15 episodes, and then that co-host, his name was Ryan. He had personal stuff he had to attend to, and so he wasn't able to
make the time
to be a permanent co-host.
Sure.
So Justin, he had some other friends fill in. I was a guest host on an episode.
Yeah.
And I believe he just now two of them agreed to be permanent co-hosts. So
cool.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah.
So if you have not listened to Crit Academy, listen to them. They're a very similar format to our own. They have, every episode they have a question that's been submitted from a listener. Mm-hmm. They talk about they have a topic they talk about every episode, a class option or whatever. Then at the end of every episode, they have a character concept, an NPC concept, an encounter concept, a DM tip, and a player tip. So every episode they have content for players and DMs that can help you be better at the game, and just give you cool ideas for stuff to do. So it's a great podcast. If you want to listen to the episode I was on, it was episode 38, which just came out a few weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before this episode comes out.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, it's a great podcast. Check it out. They're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing I want to tell you guys about is Audible. We have a partnership with audible.com. So if you go to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can sign up to get a free audiobook and a free month of their service. You can cancel after that if you want to, and if you do, you'll keep the audiobook. It'll be yours forever. But if you stick with it, every month you pay whatever the fee is, but then you get another free audiobook every month, and if you want to buy more audiobooks, you get a discount on that as well.
Yeah. And I will say, they actually have a good book return policy too.
Oh.
Like at the very least in my case, there was a book I got. It was a course on like vocabulary and stuff like that. And
Sure.
if anybody hears me talk, I sometimes have issues with words. So I was like, oh, let's try this vocabulary thing. And like, I was like, oh, it's something I can listen to at work because I'm in the car all the time.
Sure.
Sad thing is like, when I'm looking for something to listen to in the car, I want something that's going to last a few hours or something like that. And this particular course was like, it's like maybe at most 30 minutes a chapter, and each chapter, it's advised that you only listen to one a day. It's because like they are giving you a lot of information all at once. And so it wasn't bad. I still if I could remember it, I would recommend it. Maybe I'll bring it up next time, but like it's still recommended for somebody who wants to take the time to have who has a little time every day to do something like that. But because I'm on the road and I'd rather just put something on and not have to like fiddle with my phone while I'm driving,
Yeah.
So it's like, and so this isn't super working out for me, and I was like, well, then I use that credit, but then I looked, it was like, oh, you can return. It's like, I think it's either 6 months or 12 months.
Oh my goodness.
That you're just like, you know what? No, I don't want this. And so they're like, all right. And they gave me my credit back, and I used that to put it towards a different one.
That's really cool.
I was like, oh, that's awesome. And like, I don't know if there's any other rules to it. I mean, but again, in my case, it was as easy as like, I had the thing and I had it for like a month and read maybe a few, and only like listened to a few chapters of it. So I put some time into it. So it's not even like, if you read half of it, you have to keep it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the specifics of it are, but I was able to then just be like, you know what? No, I don't want this. And they give me a credit, and I can use it on a completely different thing. And so that was pretty cool.
That's really cool. I imagine there's probably something in place to keep people from abusing it, but the fact that they are willing to do that, and it's not like you had to go through this long and difficult process for it, it really shows me that they stand by their product.
Yeah. I do have, I'm not finished with it, but I do have a recommendation, and it's not game related.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually more related to what might be at the end of the episode, where it's more just about my anger and emotions towards things or anything.
Sure.
Basically, this was a book where the author was on like they were like interviewing the author on like NPR or something like that. I thought that's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
The book is called "Why Buddhism is True."
Okay.
And it's by Robert Wright. Yeah, so the full title is "Why Buddhism is True: The Science and Philosophy of Meditation and Enlightenment." Now, it is not like a spiritual guide to Buddhism or anything like that. It's much more of it's actually more of a closer look at behavioral evolution.
Okay.
So there's not like super technical science stuff in it, and there's not like super like spiritual like philosophy stuff in it. It's more just it's more a look into your thoughts, your feelings, and how your feelings can sometimes misguide you a little bit, but there's a reason why you have these feelings. Like there's an evolutionary reason why you have these feelings, mm-hmm. and how you can use that to kind of game the system of your mind or something like that.
That's kind of cool.
It's neat. I mean, if obviously if that's not your bag, it's not your bag. But I hearing the interview, I was like, that's kind of interesting take on something like this, and like things like meditation and stuff like that. And like, if at the very least it can help me better understand why I feel ways sometimes, it's beneficial. So
yeah, I think a lot of people assume that stuff like Buddhism or even just meditation has to be like a spiritual thing, and if you're not religious, it doesn't have to be. It's really just like learning to organize the thoughts in your head.
Yeah.
And everybody can benefit from something like that.
Yeah. So in this book, the example he always goes to is sugary donuts, is powdered donuts.
Okay.
Like he uses that as his big example of like, so I like powdered donuts, but they're not good for me. Like, why do I have this want for something that's not good for me? It's like, and like, I know it's not good for me, but yet I always want to have it. And like, I know that they make the powdered donuts make me happy, but I know that happiness will not last because it's not good for me. And like, I'll want a donut again after that. And then, and so it's like, I forget what it's called. It's like some sort of treadmill or something like that. I forget what the term is. I'm sorry, but it basically it's these endless cycle of searching for happiness and stuff. And like we all know this. Like we all know that like, okay, like I'm gonna want that video game.
Yeah.
But then after I'm done playing that video game, I'm gonna want the next video game, and I'm just kind of like you're happy for moments, but not forever. And it's sort of like you gotta learn to, I guess, think outside that. I haven't gotten through the whole thing honestly, but it's just sort of like this like idea of like, like evolutionarily we were like, okay, we think sweet things are great because the only sweet thing we had access to like hunter-gatherer was fruit. And fruit is good for us, And so it's like, okay, but like that want for sweet things was developed before junk food was around. And so now junk food's around, and so we have this need for junk food when it's bad for us.
Because our brains were hardwired to want sweet things.
Yeah.
Back when sweet things were good for us.
Yeah. So this is one of the behavioral evolutionary things that he talks about. So it's pretty interesting. So
interesting.
I mean, if this at all interests you, I so far I'd recommend it. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but the narrator's decent. Mm-hmm. The writing seems to be good. I mean, like he goes into a lot of like paradoxes and stuff like that, and like he like explains there's a paradox in some of the things he talks about, and he explains a paradox, and then he gives an example of one, and then after he gave that example, I was immediately like, oh my gosh, and then right after I sighed, the narrator went on to say, if this made you frustrated in any way, you might want to stop listening, because there's just so many paradoxes in these things, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
So you said it was called "Why Buddhism is True,"
right? Yeah, it's by Robert Wright. Sorry, with the W.
Okay.
Why Buddhism is in the show notes. Yeah, Why Buddhism is True: The Science and Philosophy of Meditation and Enlightenment. So I don't know. It's definitely not something like it's not on topic, but
sure, no, that's fine.
But it happened to be something I came across and am enjoying for the most part. So.
Okay, and I'll just say, like my pick for this week would probably be Neil Gaiman's American Gods. It is currently a TV show. I think it's like they're currently at their like mid-season break or whatever. But it's a pretty good show. Basically, it's the show and a book. The story follows this ex-con who gets out of jail. Finds out that his wife died in a car accident, so he doesn't have anybody waiting for him when he gets out. And then he starts working for this like strange man who calls himself Mr. Wednesday, and finds out that while working for this guy, he finds out that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that he might not have expected. So there's like some supernatural stuff. I won't really get too into it because it's sort of a spoiler.
Sure.
But, he kind of finds out that there's just more to the world than most people are willing to acknowledge. But yeah, and it's Neil Gaiman. It's fantasy. It's kind of like a dark fantasy, but it's pretty good.
Sure.
All right. So yeah, you want to get into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're an hour into the recording.
Yeah, this is an hour into the recording.
Don't worry about it. I'll see what I can do in editing, but don't worry about it.
Oh my goodness. All right. So this question comes from Nicholas P.
Yeah, after our 2 episodes ago when we said that we didn't have any, we only had like one more question from him. He delivered. He sent me a whole bunch of questions. So thank you very much, Nick. We appreciate it.
Hi, Nick. We missed you. Sorry. He asks, this is through email. It's InterPartyConflict@gmail.com. Which do you prefer and or think is better? A more grounded campaign that mostly sticks to one location like a city, or a campaign where the party is traveling to different places?
So, yeah, the very beginning of the question is, which do you prefer and or think is better? To be perfectly honest, I don't have an answer to that because I like them both.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
Right.
I would say if I had to pick one,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that they are both done well,
Yeah.
I would say my preference would be a grounded campaign that sticks to one location, like a city.
Yeah.
If there was a campaign where the entire campaign took place in one city, I would be all over that.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, that's very hard to do and keep interesting.
Sure.
So the 4th edition campaign that we've mentioned several times that I ran for 6 or 7 sessions last year in 2016.
Yeah.
Was it was the Shackled City, which was a 3rd edition adventure path. That it doesn't entirely take place in one city, but the majority of it takes place either in the city or right around the city.
Yeah.
So it's pretty contained in that regard. There's some plane hopping stuff in the second half, but for the most part, you're dealing a lot with the stuff in that city. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love when you can take one thing and really just like mine everything out of it possible. If I could give an example of something similar, this is not a campaign or a game or whatever, but the TV show Arrested Development.
Okay.
You familiar with Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Yeah. That show has this amazing ability to show you a scene in one episode or like at the beginning of an episode and then show you that same scene later on from a different context, like from a different angle. And you realize that there is more to it than you thought there was. And then they might even, like in the last season of it, they do that with, there's this one particular scene that you see parts of that scene, probably, I want to say 4 or 5 different times. Each time you realize that there is more stuff going on in that scene than the previous time. And I think that kind of an approach to a story or that kind of an approach to a collaborative game is so cool when you're able to take one thing and then there's always one more stone you can look under.
Yeah.
There's always one more door you can open. There's always one more window you can look through. The more that you can get out of one setting, the better. Because the more players are familiar with it, the more they're going to be invested in it.
Right.
And so the more that they keep finding, the more they're going to keep looking for.
Yeah.
So I love that type of setting.
Sure. Yeah. 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 It's like, yeah, it's a small pool, but it's very deep.
Yes. Now, like I said, it can be very hard to do that. It can be very hard to keep one location interesting.
Yeah. It could get boring really easily.
Yes.
You know.
Another thing, kind of like the Arrested Development thing I was talking about. Anytime a movie takes place entirely in one location, I'm on board. Because that tells me that the movie isn't trying to get viewers through flashy special effects
Sure, yeah.
or through interesting locations. It's all about the writing and the characters.
Yeah, you know that they're at least trying to make the character development better, or they're trying to focus on the story, not the visuals.
Exactly. So like this isn't the greatest example because I don't think it was the greatest movie, but there was a movie with Ryan Reynolds called Buried, where the entire movie from beginning to end is Ryan Reynolds wakes up in a coffin. He has been buried alive, and there is a phone with him. And the whole movie is close-ups on him as he's trying to figure out, by people who call him on this phone or people he's calling on the phone, trying to figure out how he got there, where he is, who's going to come and save him, and so on.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think that particular movie is a very good movie.
I can't even remember that movie.
It didn't really.
I know I haven't seen it.
But the idea that the writer was confident enough in the characters and in the writing that they were willing to make a movie that is just one guy and like you hear 2 or 3 other people's voices on the phone.
Yeah, it never cuts away or anything like that.
Not that I recall. Maybe at the very beginning and the very end, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was just the one.
And I mean, like, yeah, I feel like that's a movie that's like it's it's a cool idea, but I feel like inherently that's not going to do super well.
Yeah, it was a risky thing. But...
Yeah, it's because like you're putting somebody in a very enclosed space, and like you're basically forcing the audience to do the same.
Yeah,
like because like you want to know what else is going on outside this place, but you can't escape, and that can be frustrating and like
it was
stressful.
It was a suspense movie, so I mean, that's what they were going for.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
I feel like there's not a huge audience for that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's done like insanely well.
Sure.
But then again, I know nothing of making movies. So
I get. Wait, weren't you in video for a long time?
Technically, yeah. I did animation stuff in there. And
okay.
And I didn't do very good at that either. So.
Gotcha. So my point is, if you can introduce the players to a setting, like a city or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and if you are willing, if you as the DM are willing to go in depth enough to give every single character an interesting, every single NPC an interesting backstory,
mm-hmm.
and some business for them to be doing,
sure,
and some sort of like a plot twist or whatever. If you are willing to put in that much work, I think that this can be so good.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like if the players realize that there is all of this stuff, they're going to want more. And that's what you want your players to want.
Yeah. I think that's most important is making it so your players want to stay.
Yes.
Because you could pour all this work into this one location, and then they're like, I want to go to the Plane of Fire. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, I want to go to the Plane of Fire. Let's go to the Plane of Fire. Why can't we go to the Plane of Fire? I have this ability that lets me create a portal to the Plane of Fire. Why can't we just go do that?
Yeah.
And they're like,
I mean, there is a distinction between a campaign that takes place in a city and a campaign where the players are restrained to, or that they are restricted to only be in one city.
Right, yeah.
Now, that being said, if there was a campaign where like the entire outside world was cut off, I'm on board. I'm raising my hand. I'll play in that campaign. But again, that's something that would be hard to do. The thing that gets me on board for these is less that I think the idea is cool, although I do think the idea is cool. It's more that if I know that the writer is that confident in what they can do, that's what I want. That's the kind of camp. That's the kind of story I want to see. So if a DM was like, okay, guys, I want to run a campaign where you are stuck in one city, I'm on board.
I was just thinking of a campaign idea, but then I realized it was an episode from The Next Generation.
Okay.
Where it's like, I think it's a Wesley episode.
Is it a Wesley episode or a Dr. Crusher episode?
Maybe it's a Dr.
Anyway, go on. I think I know what episode you're talking about.
It's like one where like somebody's stuck in in a version of the Enterprise that's slowly getting eaten by a bubble or something like that. And so it's like, would that be cool if the players were in this city that was then teleported to like some unknown plane that was slowly getting smaller, and like outside the edge of the existence of that plane, like it was like the opposite of a sphere of annihilation, where everything outside the sphere was annihilated.
It's like a dome of annihilation.
Yeah, a dome of annihilation. Oh my gosh.
But I think we got an item for next week's Dragon Horde.
The dome of annihilation, where everything outside of it is like,
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so like I think that could be really interesting. I think if you can get across like the feeling of claustrophobia to your players, I think that's a powerful thing that you can do.
Yeah.
If you can, any sort of like instinctual guttural feeling that you can instill in your players, like that could be a powerful thing to use in your campaign if that's what you're going for.
Yeah. If
you're going for like a more serious, a darker campaign, that would be really cool to like restrict your characters to being in one specific location. Heck, if there was even just like a single adventure where the entire adventure was in one room, that sounds really interesting.
That sounds crazy.
Now, the Saw movies kind of have a lot of baggage along with them, but the very first Saw movie, for anybody who has not seen it, or who might have been turned off because of the idea of the Saw movies, being like torture porn and so on.
Yeah.
The very first Saw movie, the premise is these two characters wake up in like a bathroom, some sort of like abandoned bathroom. Each of them is chained to the opposite side of the room. There are clues left in the room for them to figure out how they got there, why they're there, And if they're going to escape, they have to work together to put those clues together and to figure out how to escape that room. That in and of itself is an amazing concept, but it's hard to pull off, which is probably why each Saw movie, the scope has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it's no longer about people being trapped in this room. It's about like, oh, there's this giant like government, not necessarily government conspiracy, but there's like this giant, conspiracy around this guy that's building all these death traps.
Right,
and
yeah.
There's all these factions working against each other and so on.
Yeah.
But that idea of just like characters trapped in a room where they have to really explore the room in order to figure out what's going on, I think that's so cool. And so if you can translate that into a whole campaign, that's really cool.
Yeah. I think with that, like, it was like, it seems like when a movie has that sort of like almost like like a cult fame, like it becomes a cult classic sort of a thing. Like, they any further installments of it are mostly just going to be like building on the lore to kind of play to the fans and everything like that. So I get it. Yeah. But I mean, I guess in the opposite way, traveling between planes sounds awesome.
That is also awesome. Like, I can't fault that one either.
Or exploring a continent that has like rich history and things like that. You get to meet different civilizations and things like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of fun in world building.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of fun in exploring a world somebody has built. So like that and then like there's endless possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's I guess easier. Because it's easier to come up with stuff because you can just kind of
it's just like, what's a new idea? Okay, the players go and do this.
I mean, like,
so on.
I guess I shouldn't say easier, but I mean it's
I would say there's a lower bar for entry.
Sure. Like, it's probably equally as hard to like make it interesting.
It's just as hard to do it well.
Yeah.
But if you're not worried about doing it well, it is easier just to roll with it.
Yeah, just like you. It's like if you want your players to be in a different spot, you give them a portal to another plane or something like that. So
we've talked in the past, like in when we were playing with Jay and everything, we've talked many times about having a campaign where our characters are travelers, like an episodic campaign. We even at one point were going to have it be that we had like an airship.
Sure.
And so every episode, every session was going to be like another episode.
Yeah.
Where the session starts out with, okay, we show up in a new town, and then we learn what that town is. And that has its own, advantages and disadvantages, but like that has its own charm too.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of that, just like I also like the idea of having it in one location.
Yeah.
So they both can be done well. They both can be done poorly. If I had to choose one and they were both done well, I would probably say the one location, is because I don't think that gets done as much.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like the more you can do with one space, the better. But at the same time, if you've put a lot of work into building a whole continent, I want to hear about that. I want to see what sort of stuff you've worked out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to know the history of that place.
Absolutely. So like there isn't a great single answer because both options are really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our next question comes from Average Bonnie, I believe is how the
AVG Bonnie,
which I think it's Average Bonnie. That's my guess. Feel free to correct us.
Yes.
Anyway, this was on Reddit. Awarding inspiration. When should I do that? Help me inspire others.
Yes. So this kind of goes well with the item from the Dragon's Hoard.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So inspiration is a 5th edition mechanic that I would say is underused. Now, of course, I haven't played in a ton of 5th edition games, but
true.
Everybody that I have talked to has less of an idea of what inspiration is or what it should be than I think the rules assume you will. So the way that inspiration works is anytime a DM wants to, the DM can award a player inspiration.
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't. If you get it once, you can't get it a second time and then have it twice. Like you either have it and then you use it and then you get it again, and then you use it and you get it again or whatever. But you either have it or you don't.
Right. You can't stock up on it.
Exactly. So if you have it, use it.
Yeah.
That's the lesson here. So the DM can give out inspiration really kind of whenever they see fit. And when you have inspiration, you can spend it to give yourself advantage on any one roll.
Yeah.
So anytime you're like, okay, there's a really important roll, I need to succeed. Or even, I think the rules even say that you could, if you roll poorly, be like, I'm going to spend my inspiration and then add in a second die.
Sure. Okay.
That might not be what it was intended, but I'm sure lots of people play it that way.
Yeah.
I say go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have inspiration, you can spend it to give yourself basically a really good chance at succeeding on one d20 roll.
Yeah. Can't you also transfer it to somebody else?
I don't think so. I think that's specific to the lucky feat.
Was that? Okay.
I think. You want me to look it up?
Yeah, we don't need that.
Okay. I don't think you can.
Okay.
But anyway, I think, so this question is asking, when should I give out inspiration? I'm just going to say right now, give it out all the time.
Yeah.
The more you give it out, the more the players will use it, and then the more you can give it out.
Yeah. I would argue for it, use it as much as, give it out as much as possible. As much as you feel like, makes sense. Cause the idea is you're using things like the flaws and the background traits and things like that.
Exactly.
That's the more the closer to a mechanic part of it is if they play to one of their flaws or play to one of their traits or I forget what the other
bonds or ideals.
Yeah. Bonds and ideals. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they play to one of those, that would be an example of when to give them an inspiration.
Exactly.
So in the book says this is one way to do it, or if they do something particularly inspiring, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they do something that's that was unexpected and where you're that's really cool, that's a cool idea, or maybe even that's a cool idea. It's not going to work, but that's a cool idea. Here's an inspiration point. It's you thought of a cool solution to this problem. It didn't work, but it was a cool idea. Here, have this point.
Right.
You'll use it to get yourself out of the jam you just got yourself in. Know, or something like that. So
yeah, back in the 3rd edition days, I would often, as a DM, and then pretty much every group that I played in would do this too. If a player did something that surprised me as the DM, I would be oh, here, have 100 experience points.
Right, yeah, a little bonus experience.
Yeah, and then over time that would add up, and maybe that player would level up a session before everybody else. But then at the same time, all the other players were doing clever stuff too. So that was a reward that I would use back in 3rd edition. If someone did something clever, if they did something that surprised me, if they did something that similarly, it is in keeping with their character, even if it is detrimental to them.
Right.
They'd be well, my character is afraid of spiders, so my character is going to abandon the party and run in and hide in that closet for a round because we're fighting a spider.
Yeah.
So in that case, if I felt the player was taking a big, a big disadvantage to themselves, I would give them experience. In 5th edition, I think that's really the best use for inspiration. Because, giving out experience points has its own downsides.
Yeah.
It can unbalance things, and also you might not be running a game that uses experience points. Maybe you level up every 2 or 3 sessions or something.
Yeah, you use milestones instead of experience.
So in that case, you might want to just give out inspiration as, oh, you did something cool that surprised me, have inspiration.
Yeah.
And then they'll use it, and then they'll be trying to do more stuff to surprise you.
Yeah. And I feel that can't be taken advantage of too much because you can only have it or not have it. You can't stock up on them. So even if people are and I think we've talked about this before, and I want to say you brought this up where it was the only real way to kind of take advantage of it if it was you're doing it every round or something like that. You're in combat and it's okay, this round I'm going to attack. I'm going to use my inspiration to attack with advantage. Okay, now I don't have inspiration. The next round I'm going to act out my flaw and I get my inspiration back. So you're skipping every other round. You're skipping your turn so that every other round you get advantage.
And that's only even if the DM is giving it out that often.
And I mean, I don't see a super reason why not to, as long as they're not doing the same thing every time or something like that.
Yeah.
As long as they're getting somewhat creative with it, I feel that's fine. You're cheesing it out a little bit, but I mean, it's
if a player is putting in enough work, to quote unquote cheese out the role playing aspect of the game, okay, take it.
Yeah,
so that's my attitude.
I as somebody who always has issues with roles. Whether I'm getting good rolls or bad rolls, I just the spirit of the role always just I want to do this cool thing and my character's built for this exact thing, but there's a chance it won't work.
Yeah.
So any time I can get something like advantage, I'm yeah, I gotta figure out how to get that as much as possible. So
see, that's one of the reasons I liked 4th edition. Depending on what what role you were filling, it was possible to make a character that did not have to succeed on any rolls in order to fulfill their role. You could play a warlord that gave all of your attacks to other players, or gave people free movement, or like free stat buffs or whatever.
Yeah, warlord is cool.
Didn't actually require any rolls.
Yeah, yeah.
And like if you're a fighter, even if you miss on your attack, you still marked the opponent, and now they're going to take a penalty unless they attack you, which is exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah.
So, So I love. I don't even know what point I was trying to make, but I love when players play to their character, and if that means that I can award them with a bonus to an extra die when they're rolling an important thing, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if there's ever a point where something a player does makes you go, oh, or makes you laugh, even even if it's just something entertaining or something like that, maybe not getting too goofy, because there's plenty of times when people just like the goof meter goes, goes crazy, and then it all becomes just like jokes and things like that. Which
that's a good point.
For some groups is fine, but others it's like all right, let's settle down and play this game we want to play. Yeah. But yeah, anytime a player does something that you think is exciting, or you think adds to the game, or or even if you don't think it's great but everybody else seems to think it's great, maybe that's worth giving on the point, because as long as most of the people are having a good time, that's something to maybe encourage.
Yeah. So yeah, like give it out as often as you feel like it. Anytime a player does something that you think is cool, give it out. If you start to feel like you're giving it out too much, just don't give it out as much.
Yeah, just dial it back a little bit.
One of the because they can't stock up on it. There is no stakes. Like the worst thing that happens is they have it and then they spend it and then they don't have it anymore.
Right.
That's it.
And I mean, like, it is a sort of like a consumable thing, so they might not use it all the time. Like, they might hold on to it more, so that you might not have to give it out, I guess, as much.
Right.
But I do want to say there's a way to like transfer it between people. I think that, but anyway.
I mean, we can take a moment. I can look it up.
Yeah, just double check it, I guess, because I feel like that was a thing. But
breaking news, everybody! Jeff was correct. I just whipped out my player's handbook, and it does say, additionally, if you have inspiration, you can reward another player for good role playing, clever thinking, or simply doing something exciting in the game. When another player character does something that really contributes to the story in a fun and interesting way, you can give up your inspiration to give that character inspiration.
So if you have inspiration, you can reward it to another player. Yeah. So yeah, in the case of maybe the DM doesn't think it's that great, but you think it's awesome, you're like, hey, take that inspiration.
There you go.
Or like if you're like that like steal the show kind of player, like if you're the one that kind of dominates the role playing, you're not really trying to steal the show, but that kind of ends up that way, you can kind of use that as a way to be like, to kind of like share some of the love, like, so it's like
you can be constantly playing up your character specifically to give everyone else inspiration.
You're just
But the only thing is, both of these assume that the DM is like purposely not giving out inspiration to certain people, which I think that's a weird situation that I don't think would arise very often.
It might just be like that particular DM has like strict ideas about what deserves inspiration,
I guess.
And then, but then I don't know. At that point, they could be like, if he's just going to give it out, I'm not going to give it to him,
Right.
But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. But if you ask me, I think you should give out inspiration all the time.
Yeah.
It encourages players to think outside the box, encourages players to do cool things. Mm-hmm. If they start, just trying to always ham it up, then dial it back.
And it gives them an advantage roll so that they could do the cool thing that they want to do and not just have it turn into I rolled a 3.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm going to save the day with this cool attack I've been saving, and I rolled a 2.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no, I'm going to use advantage on this time. But it's like, all right, I rolled a 3 and a 4, but at least I had a higher chance. It was exciting for a split second.
Now the dice really hate you.
Yes. Now I know they hate me.
Yes. All right. Before we close out the episode, I would like you and I, Jeff, to take a moment. Let's calm down the atmosphere here. Let's take a moment, and let's think about the heroes that have come before us and who have laid down their lives for the good of us as we go to the funeral pyre. All right, so this funeral pyre story is a short one. So, this might be a long episode, so I apologize, everybody. But this one was submitted by Dieg234, Dieg234 on Reddit. I don't know. It's like Diego, but without the O, or Deeg. I'll say Deeg. So this one was submitted by Dieg234 on Reddit. Dieg234 says, in a game of GURPS Toon. GURPS, I'll take a brief moment. GURPS is the generic universal role-playing system. It's a role-playing game that is, in theory, so generic you can do anything, so universal you can do any kind of game with it.
Sure.
So this is the Toon version of GURPS, so I'm guessing it is a cartoon-themed version. In a game of GURPS Toon, we had a character flattened by a steamroller that appeared out of nowhere.
Oh my gosh.
This was in the bathroom of a home we were exploring.
What?
So as soon as the character opened the door to the bathroom, a full-on steamroller busted through the door and flattened him. And then I'll mention that this had a reply because I posted a thread about this. The reply was, I so desperately want to play GURPS Toons for this exact reason.
That's ridiculous. I was like, how would that even happen? Oh, right, cartoons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, there are plenty of times where it's like they're going down a hallway of doors and they open up a door and there's like a giant monster in it and they close the door quickly and they're like...
Then they open up another one and there's a train coming at them.
But then they close and then the train never comes through it or anything like
Exactly. So our last few submissions for this were more somber or serious. So I figured, hey, a goofy cartoon one would be good. So let's raise our glasses in remembrance of the unnamed tune that got flattened by a steamroller. All right. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. Now, I realized something after last week when I told you about the new revelation about our name.
Oh, right, yeah.
Our Twitter handle works for either.
Sure, yeah. So
there you go. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and YouTube. Anywhere you download podcasts, you can find us. Please rate, review, and subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a PayPal donate button on our website. Anything you can give us would go towards making the podcast better. Jeff, would you like to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games. Yeah, and we actually have plans to record another game pretty soon. So,
because I'm not working this week, I'm sure we can find some time to come up with something.
So I look forward to that whenever I get around to editing it, which
it's all right.
Yeah.
All right. And then you can head over to audibletrial.com/conflict to get yourself a free audiobook. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from. I guarantee you can find something you like 100% for free. You can always get that audiobook, then cancel your subscription and not have paid anything.
Yep. And you get to keep the book, or you can apparently just return it and get a different one.
There you go. Don't abuse it, but hey, if you can get something you want for free, and you're guaranteed to find something you want.
You might still have to have an active trial or a subscription going to do it, and I want to say you have to do it on like a desktop browser sort of situation.
Gotcha.
Like, you can't do it. It wouldn't let me do it on the app, but it let me do it on the browser. But it was like as easy as once I found where to go, it was like okay, and it just sent me an email and said you got your credit back. So.
Cool. Okay. And then finally, our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, till next time.
When you're in the bathroom, just watch out for steamrollers.
There you go.
So I have this cycle that I go through And a lot of people are probably familiar with it. They probably go through it. It's, similar thing. A lot of people on the internet go through something similar. It's the hype cycle.
Okay.
You get hyped for like a video game or a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
So I haven't gone this extreme on it in a while. Like, all right, I'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
There's a little game you might have heard of called Spore.
Yeah, that does sound familiar.
Yeah. So back in the I think this was I think it came out around like 2003, I want to say.
Okay.
No, that's not right.
that was too early.
I'm sorry. That's it would be like 2007, I think.
Okay.
7 or 8. But anyway, I was really into this game. I was excited for it to come out, and I heard about it like 3 years before it came out or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to say that's right because it was around 2005 that.
And if I'm not mistaken, the first gameplay videos were so cool.
I mean, like at the time, absolutely they were really cool, and all the concepts were really great and everything. And I followed the game for years. I was on fan sites. Mm-hmm. And people were super excited about it. There was a lot of hype behind it, and I spent a lot of my time. I remember I was at a desk job at the time, so it was it was a desk job that my work didn't involve much actual input from me.
Yeah.
I would set up at the beginning and then just sit around, wait for something to break, and at the end of the day I would turn everything off.
Sure.
So most of the time was spent, and even my supervisor was on on MySpace at the time. And so I spent a lot of time on forums talking about this game Spore, and I'm like, this is going to be so cool. And the game came out, and there was some pretty cool things about it, but it was just not it
was not what had been advertised.
Yeah, it definitely was not what everybody had hoped for. And it's a hype thing, And then more people might know of more recently some No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Which amazingly right now, actually, it just came out with an update, and it is now or at the very least within the last couple of days or within the last week, I think, was a top seller in Steam.
Oh.
And they put it on sale too.
Sure.
Which helps.
That'll do it.
It's like a new update, and they put it on sale, so more people were giving it a shot. And I would also assume because of some of the changes they made to it and additions they made to it, that people who originally bought it and then got a refund, maybe were like, all right, I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
But in any case, now it's mostly positive reviews on the recent reviews.
Sure.
But anyway, but people got really excited about this game. It was really ambitious, very small team, very ambitious game.
Yeah.
And in that case, it was definitely, they were advertising it as much more than it was.
Yeah.
And
that's what I've heard.
I think, I want to say it has to do with some of the inexperience of the team, because it was such a small team, and they haven't really done much, and they haven't done something that big and that got that much publicity, that they didn't exactly know the politics of announcing and talking about a game.
Because there might be a feature that they want to include, they think they can include it, but it's not 100%, and maybe they talked about it beforehand, and then it turned out they couldn't do it, and then which if they were more experienced, they would know not to have given out stuff like that until they were more sure about it.
Right. Or to be clear that this is something we're hoping to put in it. But a lot of developers do that. I forget the guy's name, but the guy who made the Fable games. He talked so big about Fable, and then it was nowhere near as close as he was saying it was going to. And then Fable 2 was coming out, and he talked so big about that, it's going to be all the things that Fable was supposed to be, and it was nowhere near that.
Yeah.
And then Fable 3, and he was getting closer to by the time Fable 3 came around, it was closer to what Fable 1 was, what he was originally supposed to be, but he had already sold millions of copies of 3 games on a false promise sort of a thing. And then it's the whole drama of pre-orders,
sure,
and early access, and paid DLC, and microtransactions. And so anytime I start investing myself into waiting for a game, these things always pop up, and it always just exhausts me.
Yeah.
Because I'll say right now, in most cases, things like DLC, paid DLC, microtransactions, and pre-order bonuses and stuff like that don't bother me.
Yeah.
They really don't. Like, the particular game I am currently waiting for is the Lord of the Rings Shadow of War.
Okay.
Which is the sequel to the Shadow of Mordor game, which fairly successful. Like it's got some really cool features to it, and it's very fun. I've spent a lot of hours on it and I still play it a lot, actually.
Yeah, I bought it when it was on sale, and I only put a few minutes into it. I've been meaning to go back to it, but
it's an action RPG, or it's an action RPG with it's like the fighting system is very much like Assassin's Creed or
like Batman Arkham Asylum,
right? It's which is Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers owns the the content and everything.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm taking so long on this.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
If I have to, I can cut stuff out, but
Sure.
Don't worry about it.
Where was I?
Talking about Shadow of War.
Yeah. So yeah, the current game I'm waiting on is Shadow of War. So it's been built as a single player game. The first game was single player. There were some tiny little like interactive stuff, like there was no like direct interaction with other players, but like stuff that happened to other players could like have a tiny little effect on your game.
Okay.
Like you in Shadow of Mordor, you fight these like orc captains, then and like if they kill you, they gain rank and then get a little bit stronger and stuff like that. And
yeah,
you can come back and take revenge on them and stuff. That's the big gimmick on it. And so like if you had friends on your Xbox or your Steam account or something like that, and they died to a captain, that captain could come to your game and you can take revenge on them for him. Like it was called a vendetta mission. And it was just a little thing. So like, it'd be like, oh, my buddy got killed by this captain. You go and start this mission and you fight that captain. It can kill him. And then you get like some bonus XP for it or something like that. So that was the extent of any like multiplayer sort of aspect to it. And that's all anybody really expected from Shadow of War until they've been announcing like feature after feature, edition after edition, and like the game's been looking really good, like really promising to be like a very good next step in the game series.
Cool.
And then they were like, okay, now we are announcing microtransactions.
Okay.
Which was sort of weird for a single player game.
Yeah.
Not many single player games have things like microtransactions, and like because the idea with a single player game is it's supposed to be balanced for a single player to play it through, and like in a single player game, like buying something that gives you like a boost or something in the game seems sort of silly. Like, why would you buy something to shorten the game?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But they then immediately announced, or it was immediately announced by a gaming news site that they're having some more like multiplayer sort of thing. So like you would in this game, you take over a fortress and then you can put your orc followers in place to defend it.
Sure.
And like you defend it from things in the single player game, but you can also like basically share that fortress online, and then other people can go and attack it with their force.
That's really cool.
It is really cool. Like I was like, that makes perfect sense. That's a no-brainer. Of course you do that. That's perfect. So it's not like, it's not fully multiplayer, but it's a nice little like, hey, check out this cool fort. Like I put my best guys and defended it and put all this defenses into it. And then somebody would be like, okay, cool. I think I could take that, But with the microtransactions, you're able to use real money to get orc followers, to get loot, so like you can get like better equipment for your character. And then they also added in training orders, so that you can like kind of, because originally in the game was just sort of random, like what abilities that the orcs had, and then they would like gain strengths and weaknesses as you played, and depending on how you fought them and stuff like that, which is more so in this game too. But they've also added the trading orders, which means that you can give them specific traits.
Gotcha.
And all of those things in the microtransactions can all be achieved without the real world money.
Okay.
There's like tiers of chests that you can get, and like the first tier is one that you buy with the in-game currency that you're getting by playing missions and just playing the game. And so like you get like, you get a couple items or whatever, and there's a chance for them to be, any rare as possible, but a lower chance than the real world ones, the real money ones. So it's like you're able to get the same stuff. You're just more likely to get the better level stuff if you spend real money.
Okay.
So people are really upset that like it's a pay to win thing, which it technically is.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's only an advantage. It's only a time advantage, because like anything that can be done with the money can be done in time in the game.
Yeah.
Now the worry then is the worry with that is like, did they then balance the game to make it way harder and longer to not use that money?
That's a good question.
And they have come out and specifically said, no,
Okay.
we have this game. We intend it to be playable offline. Like this isn't a game that is required to be online.
Yeah.
The only thing you're ever required to be online for is like the fighting other people's fortresses, the vendetta missions, and then the real world money stuff. Like in being able to actually get the currency to buy the microtransaction and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then like all the stuff that is got through the microtransactions you can get offline.
Okay.
So they're like, if we're making this game available to play fully offline, then it should be balanced such a way. Because like, somebody who's not able to afford microtransactions might also not be able to afford an internet connection.
Good point. Yeah.
So so they're like, we balance this for offline play. We balance this so it's just a game that you can play. We wanted to have some difficulty and to be challenging and everything, but they're not dragging it out just so you have that incentive of like, do I want to spend 4 hours getting one level, or should I just buy an XP boost or whatever?
Yeah.
So like they've come right out and said that. And of course, everyone, like, there are the people who are like super, super, super against things like microtransactions that are going like, oh, they're just lying or they're bluffing. And like, of course they're lying because Warner Brothers owns them and would fire them if they said anything else. And it's like,
yeah.
You know what? I think like the publisher wants to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. They are a business.
Yeah, and it's like it's in their best interest for the game to do well, and you don't do that by firing your developer team for saying something like that's I don't know.
Yeah.
But so this is just the stress that I've been going through because I am on a perpetual cycle of waiting for a game.
Sure.
I remember when I was little and like a game would be coming out and I'd be so excited for it, like the new Pokemon game or something like that. And then I'd be like, oh, what if I die? What if I die before that game comes out and then I won't be able to play it? Like it's not like what if I die and then I'm dead and it's sad. No, it's what if I die and can't play this video game? Or what if like a war happens and I can no longer buy the video game because war is going on or something like that.
I've had that thought too.
It's not like it's not like, oh no, war. It's, oh no, I can't play video games.
Yeah.
And I still have those thoughts. And I just within the last couple weeks realized that is going to happen. Like I will be like in my old age and I will be like, odds are I will be waiting for a video game to come out and I'll be like, and then I'll like die of old age or whatever. Like, it's like there is going to be a point in my life where I die before I can play a video game that I'm waiting for. And that was like, crap. It's definitely making me look over my life a little bit.
Yeah, that's a depressing thought.
Sorry to bring everybody down and sorry to take so much time talking about.
No, it's fine. I go on so many tangents all the time. Don't worry about it.
Like, I mean, I keep thinking about maybe I'll do like a video game podcast or something like that. I mean, there's so many of them, and like, there's not much I'm gonna say that any hasn't been already said. Like with this, in example, like I'm on the subreddit for this game, and there's so many people. Like any post somebody makes, immediately there's a comment about the atrocity of microtransactions and how could they, and they're ruining a perfectly good game.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, and I could go on and on about I can argue their points And like they're right to be upset about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand why they're upset, and like I know, like everyone knows that like these things can be wrong, like can ruin a game.
Sure.
They're not wrong. They're just, I don't know, like, but yeah, I could go on and on, but like I, on the subreddit, and like I'm like typing out paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of a response to somebody who's just being very, they're being very negative, and they're anytime they would post their point, and then anytime someone would respond to it, they would, belittle them and call them a shill and stuff like that. And like, it's like, and so like I spent like the better part of a morning writing out this like big long response. I didn't send it. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
I've been there.
It's not even, and like I was like, I told Skylar, like I just wrote this whole thing and I'm not even going to send it. And she's like, well, at least you got it out. I'm like, that doesn't even like, it's like, that doesn't even help me. Like getting that out, like doesn't help. Cause it's like, it's already like in the time that it took me to make 5 points, those 5 points were posted by somebody else. And
then immediately attempted to shoot it down too.
Yeah, it's gonna make it makes no difference. Like, and like one of the things at the very end of the thing I was typing out was like this isn't gonna change your mind. You're not gonna change anybody else's mind. Never mind, I'm not gonna post this. Like, yeah. It's like this. Like, there's no point. Like, people are set in their ways. Everyone thinks they're right, whether or not they are, and like, everybody can be right in their own way, and so like it's like I need to. It's like, yeah. I was really enjoying waiting for this game. Like, I was actually getting into it and like being like, wow, okay, I haven't been super excited about a game in a while, and this is sort of fun. And then this happened, and then like they announced the microtransaction, and then like all this toxicity came, and I'm like, oh right, that's right, I hate waiting for video games, and I hate being involved in the waiting for video games. Like with No Man's Sky, I'd stayed away from it completely. Yeah, like I would check in every once in a while. I'd look at like the front page of their subreddit, and if there was like a video or something, I'd watch it, but they were pretty silent for most of it. So like there was really wasn't anything, and I guess that's part of it, because like there are games where they go silent on it for a long time and you don't hear anything about it. Sure. You might not hear about it until like 3 months before it comes out. Yeah. And even that, you might only hear like a tiny little bit here or there. With this game, they're being very transparent. Like, they're not releasing everything. Like, the story they barely touched on, and like, they haven't gone through every little detail, but like they're definitely like rolling out like a new announcement, a new like, hey, there's this cool new thing. Hey, there's this cool new thing. I mean, it's all part of the marketing and stuff like that. But they've been much more transparent. They have weekly streams. I'm sorry we're taking so much time.
Hey, don't worry about it. Seriously, I kind of understand a lot of what you're saying, and I'll just say, like, with No Man's Sky in particular, from the beginning, No Man's Sky did not look interesting to me. Sure. Between when Spore, because I remember a lot of what looked really cool about No Man's Sky also looked really cool about the original Spore. Yeah. Because in the original Spore trailer or gameplay video or whatever, you got to see that like you could zoom out so far and there was so much out there that you could interact with. Between then and No Man's Sky, I have come to realize that procedurally generated games are not what I want in a game.
Yeah. It definitely should not be like the main feature of the game. Like, you shouldn't be like this is this cool new thing. It's like, no, it's been around even before Spore and stuff like that, procedural generation and stuff like that. It's a great tool. Yeah. It is a great tool to fill in some of the gaps. Right. But,
But like, if I'm in a huge world that's like, oh, this is all procedurally generated, on one hand, that's really cool because, I can go anywhere. Then on the other hand, I'm like, well, randomly generated stuff isn't inherently interesting. It might be interesting at first, but after a while, it's like, oh, okay. Oh, cool. A cave. Is there anything in that cave? No.
Yeah. Procedural means there's a procedure, which means that there's rules to it. Like, it's not like you're not going to get it completely random. Otherwise it just wouldn't look good. Right. So like you do see a lot of similarities after a while.
You see things that repeat. And
so, I mean, like, so if they're just relying on it, then it's not going to be interesting forever.
Yeah. So when No Man's Sky was coming out and they were like, there's billions of planets you can go to. Okay, number one, there is no way anybody is ever going to see more than, I don't know, 1,000 of those planets.
Right. Which,
so really,
which they did put in as part of their marketing. Like, no one will ever see all of it.
Right.
You know?
So my question is like, why are people getting excited about there's more content than I'll ever be able to see?
Sure.
And then there's more than that.
Yeah.
Like that means that is not adding anything to the experience. And then when it's like, okay, well, that's billions of planets of stuff that is not going to be interesting to me. Like when I'm playing a Zelda game, when I'm playing Zelda Breath of the Wild and I see a cave, I'm like, holy crap, there's something in that cave that I want.
Yeah.
Because I know somebody made that cave and somebody put something in that cave that hopefully you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. You want to know something cool about the world design in Zelda?
Sure.
In Breath of the Wild. So they had a bunch of testers playing the game, and they had a way to track where everybody was going in that game. And then they basically overlaid it on the map, like little trails of where everybody was going. Yeah. And so they had that on the map and basically found the areas that were not being explored. Yeah. And then they would go in and design something or like put a secret thing there or like a little cave or something there. So they were basically making it so that every inch of that world had something interesting to go to.
That's really cool.
So like that's neat. That's cool because like they have that data, like using that data. And it's not just they're like all looking for bugs and seeing if it's fun. They're like actually using the player data to find out, okay, where's everybody going? Now, where are they not going? Now, what can we put there to make them go there so that there's not an inch of wasted space on this world? And I was like, that's cool.
That is pretty cool. But yeah, so just with No Man's Sky, I mean, I know the reasons that people were upset about it when it came out, but the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, I wasn't hyped about this game to begin with, so I'm not surprised when it comes out and for whatever reason people aren't happy with it. Because their main marketing thing was there's so much to explore, and my response is no, there isn't.
It's like, not really, And like the game was interesting to me to a point, and I did end up getting it at full cost when it first came out, and I played it for I want to say 20 hours, and I had a decent time. Like, but it did get shallow after a while. It did sort of get like, okay, it's just going to be more of the same for a while. And that's like, and it's sort of disappointing that these features aren't in there. And like the whole, like one of the main things people got really upset about was they made it sound like there was multiplayer. There was multiplayer. Yeah. They made it sound like there was some form of multiplayer, something maybe, when there absolutely was not at all.
Sure.
And like the only interaction was if somebody discovered something, you could see that they discovered it. Or if they named something, you can see that they named it. It's saved. That was it. But they very much made it sound like you could find somebody. It's just very unlikely because there's so many, but then people were spawning, like their first spawn in were spawning on the same planets other people were spawning in on. In this billions and billions of planet size galaxy that the game is supposed to take place in, what are the chances that two people are going to spawn in on the same planet? Oh, apparently pretty good because there were like multiple cases of this happening.
And then when they did, there was no other player there.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
I want to say like within a week of the game releasing, I'm not even sure if it was that long. It's like two people were able to go to the same planet at the same time. And nothing. And like, there's nothing wrong with that game not having that. It's just when you say that, yes, but there's just such a small chance that that'll happen. It's just like you're betting on that never happening. Yeah. And then of course it's going to happen because it's the internet. Sure. Like people are going to find a way to find out that you're lying, it's just gonna happen. So like
somebody is gonna data mine your game and learn every secret you put into it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, why not just say like, nope, that's not in there yet. We don't have great plans to implement it. It's gonna be a little tricky, but we'll try. And with this new update, they kind of have multiplayer. Okay. It's not much. It's I would say that if it was at this level at the beginning of the game, people would not have been nearly as upset. They'd be like bummed out that it's not like full co-op, hey, let's adventure together.
Sure.
Because right now all it is if you're on the same planet with somebody and you're in the same area as somebody, you will see like a little icon where they are.
Okay.
And
I mean,
it's
that's better than nothing, but
and like you can't really interact much with them, but I think you can. Like I don't even think like if you interact with the world, they see what you do. I think the only things that are like shared between worlds are like there's bases now. Like you can build bases. That was one of their first updates they put in there. They added like bases and stuff like that. And so like if you build a base and shared it, other people can go to it and see it. But there really isn't much interaction beyond that. And like so like even now they're like I think people are excited because they've added multiplayer, but it's still not what people were expecting.
Yeah.
To begin with. It's still not what they were kind of alluding to. And like they were being like secretive about all this stuff because it's an exploratory game. They want to make sure everyone's exploring and having a good time finding out new things. They don't want to spoil everything. So they were like, maybe you'll find somebody. It's such a small chance though. You know, like it's like, no, you won't find anybody. Like they could have just said, no, that's not in the game right now, but it's something we will look at in the future. That's all they had to say.
And now if this was a different game company that maybe had a track record of things like that, then maybe you could give them the benefit of the doubt. One thing that comes to mind, you're probably not because you haven't beaten Dark Souls 1.
Sure.
Have I ever told you about in Dark Souls, have I ever told you about a phenomenon called vagrants?
Vagrants? No, I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar.
So when playing the game, there would be times where people would be playing Dark Souls 1. This was not in any of the other Souls games. That people would just be playing Dark Souls 1, even people who had played through the game multiple times. People might have put hundreds of hours into this game. And they'd be going through an area and see an enemy they had never seen before. Every now and then, people would encounter these things. They look kind of like, imagine a ball of darkness with like a white outline with like crab claws and like weird like spikes or tentacles or eye stalks or something coming off the top of their head.
Okay.
People would see this weird thing in some weird spot. I'm talking like in a boss room. Where the boss may have already been killed, or like in a spot where it's like just like a really dangerous area. There would just be like this weird thing. They would show up once. Sometimes they were super powerful. Sometimes they weren't. Sometimes if you killed them, they would drop really good items. Sometimes they wouldn't. And then if you died to one, it wouldn't be there the next time. And you might never see one again. There were lots of people who encountered these things and were like, what the crap is this thing? Well, some guy...
That's pretty spooky.
And the wiki had, for a long time, no data on them.
Yeah.
And because of how FromSoft is, there's obviously nothing in the game that indicates what they are.
Sure.
Eventually, some guy using the PS3 version, I don't even think the Steam version was necessarily out yet. So like people weren't even really able to like data mine it yet.
Yeah.
Some guy did enough experimenting and found out that these things, which later became called vagrants, these creatures were created when a person died in a specific spot in the game while they had a certain amount of humanity on them. So in Dark Souls 1, you have your humanity stat. When you die, you lose any humanity you lost or that you had. But if you get back to it, you can get it back along with your souls.
Yeah.
If you ever have more than 5 humanity on your person and you die and then die before getting that humanity back. So if your bloodstain has 5 humanity on it and you don't retrieve it, it becomes a monster called a vagrant that goes to someone else's game.
Oh my.
If that person kills them, they get that 5 humanity or however many humanity, and then it's gone. If it kills them, it goes on to somebody else's game, and then somebody else's game, and so on and so on.
Jeez.
Not only that, there were, even if that happens, there were like 2 different versions that could spawn. It might be like a good one or a bad one.
Okay.
I think the good one is easier to kill. The bad one is harder to kill. But then there was also 2 more types of vagrants that could spawn that were not created by humanity. These ones were created by if you dropped certain items in the world somewhere. And then normally if you drop an item and then you die and you come back, it'll be gone. certain items would instead become a vagrant and then go to another person's world. And then those had a good version and a bad version too. And then if you killed it, I think it might drop the item that you dropped, or it might just spawn some other rare item or something. But these were such a weird phenomenon that were not documented for a long time because they were so rare. Like I said, there are people who have like platinumed the game, put hundreds of hours into it, and never actually encountered one.
Jeez.
I personally, I think, have encountered 2.
Oh.
One of which was in a boss room, and I was like, there is not supposed to be that enemy in this boss room.
It's like, what the heck is this?
Another one, you know the archers right before Ornstein and Smo?
Sure, yeah.
There was somebody who encountered one on the ledge with the archers.
Oh, no.
There was a guy on Reddit who he had taken it upon himself. There's a glitch you can do to like use up a consumable item without actually using it up. He did this trick. He would do this thing to give himself a bunch of humanity and then purposely die. And then do it again, and then purposely die. And so basically he was spawning vagrants to go out into the world and attack people.
Yeah, I mean that sounds exactly like what somebody would do, because like once you figure out how that works, it's like there's this cool thing, like, and I'm gonna take advantage of it as best I can in some way. Like,
right.
Have fun with it.
Now the point I'm trying to make though is that if a game came out that FromSoft made, I could see that like weird 1 in a billion chance or whatever being something that they intended.
Yeah.
And like if it never happened to you, but you heard that maybe it could happen, you might be willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody would have believed that had it not happened in Dark Souls 1.
Sure.
Before that, I don't think anybody would have given them the benefit of a doubt.
Yeah. With like by the time like Dark Souls 3 comes around or something like that, you're like, okay, there's like I can't wait to play this game and I'm going to explore as much as I can, but like I'm expecting there to be something somebody finds like years laler, or like a year after the game has been out, like somebody still finds something new. Right. Cuz and they're really good at doing that and putting little things in there. And like I like that cuz it's like there's always somebody finding something new. This was a while ago, but there was like, I want to say like within the last couple years, like they found a previously unknown screen on like I forget what it was. Like it was like a Street Fighter game or something like that.
Okay.
It was like the old arcade cabinet, like Street Fighter game, or it might have been a different fighting game or something like that. But it was basically like if you pushed buttons in the right combinations, you would find this screen that was like a debug screen or something like that.
Okay.
That like that game's been around for a long time, and only recently they found like this. They figured out how to find this screen that like nobody had found before. Yeah. Like this mode in the game that nobody knew about before then. So like it's just like it's cool. It's cool when stuff like that happens, and it usually comes from like the speedrun crowd and that sort of thing. Yeah. Welcome to Talking Video Games with your hosts Gabe and Jeff.
Yeah, we're over 36 minutes into the episode. Yeah. We haven't actually started the episode.
so why don't we start the episode?
Okay.